Okay guys, so today we're going to compare apps in astrology, and this is something that I feel needs to be talked about a little more. But I met somebody who let me look at their chart last night, and when I asked them about astrology, it sounded like they already knew and were studying their chart. And a lot of times, you might go up to somebody and say, hey, check this out. Like my chart has this and this sign in it, right? In this particular example, we're going to be using CoStar, and I'm going to be explaining as to why I use the apps that I do, and then we could get into like the settings and things like that. But they pretty much told me or asked me, what does my chart say and stuff like that, right? So as I started reading it, I brought up the signs, and they said, well, what is that? And apart from asking, what is that, because I use the constellations or whatever, they noticed that I had different results in terms of how their chart is being calculated. So what's going on here is, when I looked at the app that they use, which I've used before, so I immediately knew a lot of things that I'll explain in greater detail in future videos. But the way charts are calculated is not only different, but there's a lot more to just calculating a chart. There is a concept known as the precession of the equinoxes. So a very interesting thing here is CoStar claims, when you first get like an account, it claims to use NASA coordinates for like utmost accuracy, right? But that's the interesting part, is whether you're using ASA or Stellarium or Sky Live or any other astronomy program or app, it actually does not match the coordinates provided by CoStar. And one of the reasons as to why I don't recommend or use this app is, not only are the placements not consistent with the constellations and the planets in real time, but it's also the display. So the person was telling me that their approach to houses and things like that was something that they were still learning. And if I look at this, it's actually kind of difficult to learn the houses, because it's only showing you the planets that you do have houses in. It is not arranging them in a way that shows you a lot of aspects or things like that. Apart from that, it's kind of giving you a lot of suggestions that might not necessarily be true, right? And some people might be saying, hey, everybody is right. There is no right or wrong answer. But I'm going to tell you something. If you are wiring your house and you do it incorrectly, you could burn it down. There are things such as OSHA and standards that are designed to prevent certain things, such as, a malfunction in your wiring that could spark a house fire, right? So we're going to keep it simple today and kind of use a very basic few things, right? So here it's saying that the ascendant for this chart is going to be in Pisces, and it says that the ascendant is the mask you present to people. It could be seen in your personal style and how you come off to people when you first meet. This is actually not true. And it's also saying that it could change every 2 hours. So obviously you want to rectify your birth chart, which is true. Birth rectification is an important thing. In fact, if you don't have your chart rectified, or even if you feel like you do, it's always very important to double check that if you want to get deep into astrology. But anyway, as I was saying, so according to this, not only is the description of an ascendant wrong, but it's saying that they are a Pisces. It is also saying that their moon and their sun is in Scorpio. Well, When I was looking at their chart, which I have here, it doesn't say that at all. In fact, it says that the moon and the sun are both in Libra, and that their ascendant is actually in the sign of Aquarius. And these are pretty big things, right? Like, obviously, if you were looking at more specific things, this is going to matter a lot more. But even with something very big, such as the moon and the sun, and, you know, your ascendant, to have that much of a variation in calculation can cause confusion for people. So they looked at this chart, which is the one that I use when I have to use my cell phone. When I have access to a computer, I actually prefer using a software. But this is the next best app, and that I found. Like, there's a lot of other apps out there that are pretty good that I would also recommend. But I really like how this one operates and functions, at least for, you know, what I do when I don't have access to a software. So yeah, I mean, here it's displaying the 12 houses, so it's much easier to not only learn the houses and where the planets fall for this person, but it's breaking them down in a much more specific way. There's a lot more than just a regular chart here. And unlike the CoStar app, it's not suggesting or telling you what you are. In fact, it's kind of like a way of programming people. And I feel like that's why there's so much confusion in astrology today. So this was a quick introduction into a thing that I feel, again, needs to be talked about more. But why do people use the astrology apps that they do? Which one's better? How do you verify and know in terms of accuracy and things like that? These are very important things to discuss and dwell about, but the way your chart is calculated and the way it maps out the planets in the sky, it's going to make a very big difference. So I'll teach you guys how to double check all of that, and I'll teach you guys how to use other resources to cross verify astrology calculations with science, astronomy. There's a lot of shortcuts that we could use for that as well. But kind of understanding this is going to be a big clarity as to, because I've met a lot of people that, you know, they ask me, how are you doing that? And then they try and reverse engineer that and look at their app, and they're just not getting anything that would signify that, or it starts to give conflicting results because the app that they use suggests general one-size-fits-all things based on their chart. So the answer is going to be this: not all charts are the same. Not all of them use the same calculations. Not all of them have the same approach, etc., things like that. As you get more advanced, obviously, you're going to find out that in a lot of the settings, for example, you could have different house systems such as Placidus, Porphyry, whole sign, etc., things like that. So we'll get into that later as well. But I just wanted to kind of put this out there for those people that either get a reading from me or they get curious about my approach and they want to be able to replicate that on a more accurate level. I would say avoid apps such as CoStar, avoid things like this, and get a little more into, this is called the Jyotish app. It's very good. But if you can, and you have access to a computer, try and get Jagannath Hora. Now, it could be very intimidating because unlike the apps, the software has to be calibrated and, you know, you got to set parameters on it and all this stuff. So I'll teach you guys how to do that as well. But for now, I feel like we could conclude here. This is just a brief thing that I wanted to talk about. And if you guys want me to compare more apps, or you have any more questions about how I calculate my apps, etc., things like that, feel free to ask and leave it in the comments. Or if you would like to book a consultation, you got questions, etc., things like that, definitely feel free to reach out. So anyways, thank you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.